What a week.
I know.
And you're all in a bar?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Good minutes, I guess. But Kara, did you dye your hair? Oh, it might be the lighting. It looks red. I don't know. My face looks orange with this lighting, so I could just be off.
Two more.
What's up, Ian?
It
Hey,
is red.
what's going on?
Oh, it is red? Like always red? So all this time I just thought it was kind of
Yeah.
blonde. Oh, okay.
I mean, it's like a mixture of both.
Okay. This is the first time I've ever looked at you. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's fine.
So, Ian, what do you think about the school stuff?
Well, I'm glad that the districts are doing the right thing. I just worry about the districts out west.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, we could touch on this. I can give you guys more of an update on the stuff I'm learning, kind of in the background on the COVID and the school stuff, because I think that's going to have a pretty big impact on our economy. But yeah, I think 259 went ahead and delayed for 2 weeks or 2 weeks after the holiday.
Yeah,
Yours as well?
Yeah, our superintendent already said, regardless, we're not going to be getting back until after Labor Day. So he already had that plan. It's set. So
Okay.
we're happy with that because it gives us a little more time to make sure everything's good to go. But also worried about a lot of the community down in Hayesville actually enacting a lot of the stuff. So
And we're yeah. I mean, yesterday we're gonna see the spike. I guess I'll just kind of more informally as you're waiting for people to get on. Emily, are you driving? You okay, Emily? We can't hear you, but I'm worried about you.
I'm a passenger. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm,
Like,
I'm
we
Hey,
can
headed
wait.
to Oklahoma.
I just wanted to say
Right.
I'm dropping off right at 10 because I have a 10:15 appointment, just
Cool.
in case I disappear.
Okay, yeah, no problem. We don't have a real extensive or long agenda today, so we should end on time. I think I've said that before. Who knows, though, if we actually will. So yeah, I'll just start off just a little more informally. Yesterday, we saw a jump in the COVID numbers almost twice as much as the day before. I think it was Wednesday. We saw 100, around 100 positive tests. Yesterday was around 200. Really what we're seeing is a couple of things. We are going to see that bump from 4th of July right now. Like that's it, pretty much last week and this week is going to be that 4th of July bump. And what that is public gatherings that folks didn't wear masks. We have this idea, maybe I got to wear a mask to the store when I'm around strangers, when I'm around my friends, when I'm around my people I go to church with or my family, I'm safe. And really, that's how we're seeing spreads. We saw a bump after Mother's Day, for instance, like back before we had community spread, back when we had cluster spread. So yeah, that's likely what we're seeing. It's still pretty scary. There's a few things I'll report on before we jump into the agenda. So one of the things we are in what the White House considers a red zone, which means that out of all the testing that we're doing, we have over 10% of those tests are coming back positive. And as far as the hospitalizations are going, we went from 54 hospitalizations 2 weeks ago to this week it's 58, which means we were still climbing, although that climb is actually a little less than it's been in the weeks past. The numbers from the weeks past are actually, I think I got them right here, where we went from, weeks, this is each week, we went from 15 hospitalizations to 20 to 32 to 54 to 58, which means the percentage wise, hopefully we're taping off because of the masks and we can hopefully start going in the other direction. The hospitalizations are the numbers that scare me the most because that actually takes up space in the hospital, which means that we start seeing preventable deaths, which are not so much because people focus on COVID, you're likely to survive it. Right, I guess, COVID to an extent is less deadly for most folks. It's very deadly for some folks, but it takes about 2 weeks roughly once you're hospitalized to actually get over it. So you're in a hospital taking up that bed for that much time. And what's happening is like someone showing up with chest pains, can't get admitted to the ER because there's no room. So the doctor says, hey, go home. And if it gets worse, come back. And while they're home, they have a heart attack. Like those are the type of, like, when we talk about preventable deaths, that's what we're talking about. Deaths that aren't really related to COVID directly, but if it wasn't for COVID, that death probably wouldn't have happened. So that's why we're really trying to protect that hospital.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I can't see anything, but before I have to go on mute for just a second, can we address, because I'm getting a lot of blowback on that the numbers are inflated and the media is lying about hospitalizations and total numbers of cases, and so that's a reason why we don't have to be afraid or / be careful and things like that, because the numbers aren't really the numbers. So how do we address that, and is that a true statement, and how do we get clear information from I guess city and government leaders and from the media?
So yeah, this has been my difficulty, and I'll try to be short with this, but I've never been in a political situation where all the experts are now challenged, right? Because the situation is such a big impact on people's lives. Like, they are utilizing, I think, a lot of their cognitive abilities to deny the severity of the problem. And I've seen this because usually our emotions travel faster than our logic. We use our logic to fill in the gaps, and that's kind of partisanship. We just kind of get partisanship. But with this particular issue, it is uniquely met with both, I guess, like inaccurate information and also denial. And the only thing I link it to personally is that when we have huge major events that shock us, we typically create, and it sounds terrible, but there's usually a sector of folks who typically create a conspiracy around it that results in the commonality with these conspiracies is that it wasn't really that bad, or it's we're somehow in control of it. And we see this where some mass shootings have been this conspiracy theories that they didn't actually happen, right? Because the comprehension of some of that stuff from happening is just too much for people to get. So I think there's a few things. I think there's some folks who just can't comprehend what's happening, and they kind of cling on to, well, it's really not that bad. This is just a flu, or it's just, and then also because it's somewhat of a new virus, the science is constantly changing on it. So you have folks where CDC earlier this year did say, hey, masks, we don't think masks are going to work. And now, like, it's the whole international community has done a complete flip-flop on that because new data has come out and you realize that, wow, masks are actually working. So you also have like this battle of the science is evolving on COVID, and it's so old information is still lingering out there while the new information has kind of shown that wrong, which caused more confusion. I will say, as far as the numbers go, and this is the weird thing, like, you're supposed to not trust me, right? Like, I'm an elected official. Like, you don't have to trust me. Like, that we see from the White House that there's information that sometimes comes out from the White House that has been shown wrong, right? Like, elected officials, like, sometimes don't give you the full information. But we are seeing this information from our institutions, our academic institutions, Johns Hopkins University. We're seeing it from our media institutions, the New York Times, who does their own data. We're seeing this from our medical community. Literally every member of the Wichita's medical community is behind this, like knows this is serious. We are seeing this from intergovernmental, right? We're at the city level, the state level, and the county level. We're all reporting roughly the same data. And normally, if you know anything about us, we don't like each other, right? Like, we don't all work together well. So the idea that the numbers are wrong or this is a conspiracy would actually have to suggest that for the first time in history, all these institutions are working together and saying the same thing for the outcome that is a negative outcome. Like, we would have to actually assume all that's going on. And then on top of that, we would have to somehow explain away the 148,000 Americans who are dead right now. Like, we'd have to explain that away. Like, so I I get it. And when we talk about talking points, I'm kind of gonna get into something else I learned on my Zoom class with Harvard yesterday. But if we get into talking points, I think it's more, we have to first of all come to the realization that like, hey, this is real, and the idea that all this has been faked, like there's really not a benefit. There's not a financial benefit. There's nothing like hospitals when they're packed, they can't do their elected surgeries, and that's how they make their money. Like there's just an economic benefit where all of us who have 401ks, who have stock, like our economic future is at risk with this thing. Like there's no benefit for us to keep this going. Politically, and I'll just say, like, I get messages that like I'm somehow flexing on folks, where like I'm making them wear masks makes me or elected officials feel like, oh look, we're controlling, we're powerful. And the reality is like politicians like to, I guess, flex on folks by getting in a crowd of folks and doing a great speech, right? Like that's what politicians like to do. We had to cancel all those this year, or try to have like great like get-togethers and public events that make the community feel good and stronger. That's usually how elected officials kind of, I guess, flex, right? Like that's how we feel good about what we do. That's the fun stuff of this job, and we had to cancel all that. So the idea that the elected officials somehow are benefiting off forcing folks to wear masks, like as an elected official and as someone who's kind of swimming in those waters, like I know that no, usually these guys like to have a budget to go do fun things, and like not have to slash their $11 million out of their budget, the $26 million in 2 years. So anyways, short story long, I think that a lot of the arguments against it are surface arguments, and they're usually based off like an emotional response with some logic to support it. When you start kind of peeling back the layers, like there's not a lot of support, I think. However, that doesn't change how we respond, right? Like our goal is not to approach someone and be like the smartest person in the room and tell them they're wrong on everything. Our goal is to be empathetic, because a lot of times people are saying this stuff, and what they're saying is they're really hurting right now, right? Like this is really scary. They're hurting. They're hoping it's not as bad as it sounds. So really, when I encounter folks, like that's kind of the two things I'm approaching, where you have people who are like literally going through that stage of grief, thinking about what this is, and part of that stage is denial, part of it's anger, part of it, there's a lot going on. And our job, I think, as neighbors really is to be sympathetic, to, they say leadership, the difference between leadership and management, I guess, is leaders take into account what the person they're talking to will feel with the statement they're about to make, right? Like, so just keep that in mind, that our job isn't to go out there and like, own people on social media. It is to be empathetic and to try to also relay really not positive, but really accurate information. I mean, that's how we get out of this, is eventually we get the right information out there. And I'll tell you that on my call or my Zoom yesterday, only 1 out of 10 parents think that school should open up with no restrictions at all, that everything should go back to normal. Only 1 out of 10 parents who are statistically think that. The majority of Americans still trust our institutions. They still trust experts. They're worried about this. And when you actually get to them, the anti-vaxxers, the anti-science, the anti-message machine is a very small group, or as far when compared to, when you actually poll and test to see their influence. But again, I think that there's two things going on. I think that it's figuring out how do we decipher what's being said. I think a lot of what's being said is a concern of the situation more so than a denial of facts. But so, I mean, the reality is, and I don't really know exactly. I don't have the artful way to answer that question. It's tough because when you're dealing with someone who thinks everything's kind of fake, and it's all like, at that point, like, how can you or how can I, if you've already rejected the media, you've rejected the medical community, the academic institutions, the research, if you rejected CDC, all of that and you're still in defiance of this thing, like to me, like half the time I think there's probably nothing I can say, right? At that point, like my job is to provide comfort. So I just also want to kind of, as someone who works my job, I take a lot of heat and pushback for trying to deal with COVID. That's my advice is sometimes you're just not going to reach these people. My family's having a birthday party for my 3-year-old niece. My family, like we can't go, but my brother-in-laws, my mother-in-law is going to be there. Like I can't even really get to them that's dangerous, right? They're still going to meet and have this birthday party. Like, so as the mayor of a city who's in on private calls and on Harvard trainings about the severity of this, like, and I'm a relative, I still can't, there's certain groups that people who should trust me who just don't fully want to change behavior to this information. So I don't know. Hopefully that helps. I will also say that this was kind of exciting to learn yesterday on our call that there is one study, or at least a paper, that says that they're finding that masks might actually give folks who test positive while wearing masks get a lower dose of COVID. So my hairdresser, she was cutting my hair and telling me how like she had COVID like a week ago, which is terrifying, by the way, because you did what? You know, like, they closed down the shop. I think they did everything right. But she had like no symptoms practically, and went in and got a test, and she felt she was like exaggerating, and it turns out she was positive. Well, she's also wearing a mask and around folks who are wearing a mask, and she just said, yeah, it was really nothing. You know, I felt like the worst days she felt like she was hungover, and then like, you know, fast forward to my Zoom call yesterday where a medical doctor is giving us info on some of the latest stuff. They were actually hypothesized that wearing masks, you're getting less droplets on you, you're getting less dosage of the virus, even when you test positive, which means that you might have a milder case of it, which means you're getting those antibodies and you're not getting kind of knocked out, like taking up hospital space for that positive. So we're seeing even more benefits with masks than just, oh, it stops the virus or it doesn't stop the virus. If you do get it or even pass it on, you're likely to get a smaller, lesser dose of it, which is hopeful, right? So anyways, I don't mean to like kind of, yesterday I watched a video of our press conference. I answered a question. It was like 6 minutes. And I was like, yeah, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I can't believe I would take up like 6 minutes answering a question, but I think I just did just now. So I got to stop that. But any follow-ups about what's going on with COVID, I'm happy to give you guys like all the info I know and what I've been privileged to. So if there's any questions, let me know. Cool. However, we will have to talk about, at least in our next meeting, we're going towards, I don't know if we're going to go towards a partial shutdown. I don't know if it's just going to be like the bar scene or if there's going to be other industries we got to worry about, and how as a community, what can we be doing to kind of, I guess, address this? Also, the background noise, I'll tell you, just for those people who work in hair salons, is that, and by the way, this, I hope this sticks, is that in the beginning, they thought hair salons are going to be a place of transfer of this virus, right? And they actually are finding out they're not. Our stylists are actually doing things really well. Like so the White House recommendations for a red zone is to shut down nightclubs, bars, and gyms. And it used to be, I think, hair salons were targeted as well, where we got to shut down hair salons because people, you know, going in there is too close. But from the data that they're collecting from, you know, places that have been open and the contact tracing, hair salons apparently haven't been that much of an issue, which, yeah, and I kind of know this, right? Because we've been on this thing for months, and a lot of you folks here work at salons, and you guys are all, yeah, we're trained to keep things sterile. We're trained to, you know, to clean things, and I think
right, done this the whole time.
Is what?
We've done this the whole time, right?
I know, right? Like, and I just love you guys with the like kind of rolling your eyes in the back of your head. Like 3 months ago, we're like, yeah, we can handle this. Yeah, we actually, you know, we've been trained to not pass along germs. I just wanted to kind of relay that in the policy world and kind of that background, they're talking about that. And I think that it's a really cool, in my opinion, just kind of brag on your industry, right? That shows like, you guys were saying this the whole time, and it's shown like you're right. Like you, like which I never doubted you, but you know, definitely, it shows that some of these policies are also adapting. They're changing. So the bar stuff, we'll eventually, I think, want to put in the back of our mind to see what we have to do. And I'll briefly just report on before we jump into the agenda. Dr. Menz over in the county is the one who wrote the order to close down bars. However, the bars have two levels of, let's say, certification, liquor license, right? He wanted to keep restaurants open while also closing down the nightclubs. And we've just seen for weeks with our snitch line and with our officers walking in, pretty much there's a point of time when bars become nightclubs and people are drinking, and you just can't enforce the mask at that point, right? Like at first I was angry, like you need to go enforce masks, but after talking to owners, like at that point you were not going to be able to enforce the mask at that point. And then you get kind of photos of everything just it looks fun, but it's not in line with our masking order or our 45 person under order. It's been a cause of spread. We've gotten lots of data to show this is one of the causes of spread. So Men's try to micro-target bars and nightclubs while leaving restaurants open. One of the problems is about 2/3 of all of our bars also serve enough food to qualify as a restaurant. And if you go, let's say, to one of the downtown bars, you're eating and everything's great, and like at like a certain time, it doesn't really turn into a restaurant anymore. It kind of turns into a nightclub, right? Like you're up dancing, like it's different. And by the way, I don't go out, so I have no idea. So like I'm probably sound like an old man trying to describe this stuff. Our actual brew pubs are actually not the problem. They're doing great. Like the brew pubs are actually really, I think, forward thinking and progressive on this and going back to curbside. Naturally just kind of going back to curbside. They're doing a really good job of service. So one of the things that the county commission did, though, is they didn't understand the value of the originally I think it was a 10 o'clock curfew. And if you put the curfew plus the first tier liquor license together, you can allow heroes, let's say, to serve alcohol or to be of service up until about 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock. And then usually the time plus the alcohol usually is what turns the environment, right? So when they put a cap on it by having what is it? The cap. I don't know why I can't get this word out. This is like 2 days in a row. The curfew. When you put the curfew on it, it actually had that natural tendency to not have these kind of spin off into the environment that makes it so you might not have a mask. So anyways, but they took off the curfew, and I believe that they're going to put that curfew back on. And that might be coming from the county level. So our goal is to hopefully eliminate some of those environments where we're seeing lots of contact and spread. And if we can somewhat kind of keep that industry limping along while also having masks and get the numbers down, we'd be, I think, in a better spot.
This is Felicia. Is that going to allow them then to go ahead, the smaller bars, to go ahead and stay open then instead of having to close completely? Will they still be able to stay open till 10?
So I don't think so. And like I said, I want to be clear. I'm not in a room with this. I take the heat for this, and I accept the heat for it because I'm the guy who's out there messaging it, right? Like, and I'm on Twitter, and I can't pass the buck. You might as well just beat me up, and I'll be happy to do that. But I do want to make it clear that this is the health officer over on the county side, not on the city side. I haven't, at this point, I doubt he will let that other smaller liquor license free and just go with the curfew. I think that we would need some data to show that the curfew is really what you need. But your point that you're trying to make.
Yeah, well, what if they were allowed to stay open until at least 10 and made some sort of changes to where they could at least not close completely, but they could stay
Gotta
open
limp
until,
along.
is that even a possibility?
So, like I said, it's, I think, and I'm guessing because I'm not the one who's making that call. I think that this order will go in as is with the curfew, which means that kind of small mom and pop's bar, the bikini bars, the really the ones that were wound up getting closed, the like 1/3 that actually just fall under the license where they don't serve food. I think those will close for the next few weeks. I'm not sure there's any way to let those out right now. And the way the county's looking at this is that though it's an artificial timeline of 4 weeks, they're revisiting it every week. If they find out that the curfew is beneficial, then I think that they can start adjusting it. Now, I will say that this is still a moderate approach. Douglas County had over 14% test rate uh, a few weeks ago, and they did their mask order and closed bars all at the same time, and now they're at 6%. That's where we're like, we would love to be at 6%. That's amazing. So we do know there's a correlation with masks and there's a correlation with bars. What we're trying to do, and the White House says close all bars last week. Like last week, this is a time game too, like close them all. What we're trying to do, and I think what the health doctors trying to do is kind of limp towards like, how do we kind of try to keep this industry somewhat afloat and alive while still getting the numbers we need. So they are taking more of a measured approach. It is it's dangerous, and frankly, it's an experiment. But I think they're doing it trying to with the best interest in mind. And the response from the bars have not been good, obviously. Where because there are some that are doing it right, they're doing everything right, and they're being penalized really because some aren't. And I don't think it's their fault. Like the ones who wind up becoming kind of more of a nightclub feel. And I got in trouble or not in trouble. I got one of the owners got very animated with me on Facebook, and I get it. And they revealed pretty much like they really can't control this at a certain time, which is true. Like I totally understand that. And so I think that they're trying to figure out how can they keep the bars open while still lowering that problem, which is a lot of spread. And it seems to have a correlation with as how late does the bar stay open. So that's what we hope. Now, one thing we are doing, and Felicia, I think you'll, this might actually get to your question as well, is I'm working with staff right now to find ways to allow bars and restaurants to open up on sidewalks, on streets, and also in parking lots. Kind of rope off the center, right? I think it would make Old Town pretty cool, to be quite honest, where kind of like, I used to go to Montreal, and a lot of restaurants and stuff would be in the streets, and you have people playing music, and it's just a great atmosphere when you have outside dining. We all know that dining outside is actually a lot more safe than dining inside because the droplets kind of circulate through the air. And we also know that a lot of our small bars don't have patio space, right? Like, so if we could extend out an opportunity for them to have patio space to kind of spread out a little bit, then they could maybe more safely serve our community. So we are working with that. Sadly, my boss is a stickler for good policy. Not my boss, the staff's boss. Maybe a Felonian slip there, right? The staff's boss is a stickler for good policy, and it's complex. Like they have to go through the design board. They can't just like I tell them like just give me sidewalk, just do it tomorrow. Like what's wrong, right? Like I'm a legislator, I just want it done. But they actually have to go through to weed out all the unintended consequences. So that's what they're doing now because I wanted to roll this out this week. Or do like a layered approach. Tell me what you can give me. But we're working on that, and it will hopefully, once we start getting the numbers heading this way, I'm hoping that we can start working with the county and saying, hey, we're going to now allow small bars to have an outdoor patio in their parking lot, and let's try that out for a week or two. Like, I'm hoping we can start easing back towards that. But again, right now it is completely about the numbers. It is just, particularly at the time frame now where we want kids to get back into schools, and we don't want people to die. Like that's the other thing too, is everyone thinks that this isn't that bad. Texas, we're on the same trajectory as Texas, as Houston. I think it was Tuesday. Texas had about a few hundred deaths. Bad, you know. And I think it was Wednesday, very next day, they had almost 4,000 deaths. And one day it was 9/11, like, you know, where boom, like all those people died. That's what we need to avoid. So in the end, when we talk about the economics of this, like there is also, in Wichita, we've been very fortunate where we haven't seen massive death. A number like yesterday where we literally doubled in one day on testing worries me. The modeling early on in this was showing that we were going to have hundreds of deaths, and we got out in front of it. And right now, like we are not really in front of it anymore. So that's the other piece to it. So anyways, that was a long update on COVID and a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks since we met. I think we're small businesses particularly in mind. And the last thing I'm going to just touch on is trying to get some support for our businesses, for our small businesses. We need to go back to, I think it's the chamber website. There was another opportunity, maybe Bell knows more about this actually, where there's other like small business type, I don't know if they're loans or if they're grants or what they are, but they're particularly prioritizing, or you have a better chance of getting it if you didn't get like the PPE loan or whatever. If you didn't get one of the first round, Bill, by the way, would be doing a lot better job describing these in terminology. That's correct. But there is more help coming, and in Congress right now, they are actually getting through another stimulus bill to support. We just all understand that Congress is absolutely slow, you know, and we got to try to keep things afloat until then. But Wayne, I'm going to go ahead and just, do you have any comments on, I'm throwing you on the spot, I apologize, but I heard yesterday there's some more business stuff coming down. What do you got?
Yeah, there's some funding that's made available through the CARES Act that Sedgwick County basically has access to now. So what I'll do is I'll share this with Dee Nelson or I'll try to send it out to the group. But in short, there is a fund that businesses can apply to and to obtain funding if they've been impacted. Obviously, everyone has been. And so I'm looking at the document now. But in short, there are funds that the state has, and they've dispersed funds to the counties. And so Sedgwick County has this fund. And then in addition, you've got right now, firms can still apply for an economic injury disaster loan, the SBA EIDL loan if they haven't already. So we have that resource. You can still apply for the Paycheck Protection Program if you haven't already, and that goes through August 8th. But I'm hearing that there's another round that they're considering, another bill, if you will, that's kind of in discussion. And so I would anticipate something else perhaps out in August. But anyway, the resources that remain available, again, you've got PPP, you've got EIDL through SBA, you've got the county now, Sedgwick County has a site, and I'll send this. And then also, we just got word yesterday, there's another source, and this is particularly intended for underserved communities, so women, minority-owned firms. There is a program that will be accessed through SCED, the South Central Kansas Economic Development District. They have a loan fund, and I'm just now learning information about that, and that one will go live here in just a few weeks. So we'll be sending information out about that shortly. The last program that I was just talking about is called CARL. It's an acronym, and I believe it stands for Community Advantage Revolving Loan. We're the government, so we've got a lot of acronyms. But anyway, I'll send more information out to this group about that. But again, those are the resources that I'm aware of today. And the group with the chamber, basically there's a task force that's centered around all of the things that business owners are encountering and how business owners might continue to operate in this COVID environment. So Wesley, at the moment, we had a presentation this week with the chamber group that Wesley has a initiative around wearing a mask. And so there's some other documents, some other flyers that I'll forward to this group. And if you're interested, they're inviting other companies to be a part of this. And it's a mass campaign where they've got some neat pictures, if you will, of customers and business owners wearing their mask. And so this group is talking also about perhaps kind of celebrating business owners that are encouraging or that have really adapted to this environment better, and you know, to perhaps highlight some best practices and things that they're doing to really encourage people to wear masks. So that's all I have at the moment.
So Wayne, and we'll get to the agenda after this. I just want to ask, if I reach out to you maybe this week, every Saturday or Sunday, I do kind of this like informal, almost coffee with the mayor. It's like a dual ask me anything type thing at my house where on social media, like a dual, like it's on both my pages, I guess. I want to make those a little maybe more official. I'm wondering if I can get you, if you're interested, possibly to kind of be a guest. We're talking about particularly the type of stuff that could be helping the bar industry. Like what type of loan should small businesses be really focused on at this particular time? And the other thing too is that the CARES Act money, I'm finding out from the county side, because I met with those guys yesterday and asked like, hey, can we get payments to small businesses who have to lay off employees to kind of keep employees afloat, right? Because a lot of people kind of burned through their unemployment earlier this year. So what do? We have a responsibility to try to help. And it turns out that I think CARES Act money right now can only be utilized for maybe paying rent of small businesses. It can't be like fished through to help support, you know, employees who are laid off. There's restrictions there, but it sounds like that there might be some other stuff out there that can help keep some of these small businesses afloat. You know much more about this than I do. Can I reach out to you maybe the next week? And
yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to. So I'm looking at the Sedgwick County list of eligible costs that can be covered by their funds. And what I see here is PPE. Mm-hmm. So PPE, everything that goes under that umbrella. And then they talk about thermometers for screening, so screening equipment. They also talk about computers, phones, webcams, other equipment to accommodate teleworking, communication and community outreach to inform the public, health guidance, and then also payroll costs for staff substantially dedicated to COVID-19 response activities. Okay. So they've got a good list of things that are eligible, and yeah, but yes, Mayor, I'd love to be a part of that kind of forum to just continue to raise awareness of how we can help and perhaps some of these other resources.
Yeah, because we got to get through this, and you know, it's interesting. This is like a huge crisis, right? Like, I'm not smiling because like this is funny. I'm smiling because like, what timeline am I on where I get to be mayor during this like literally like earth-shaking time? But trucks didn't roll in from DC with supplies. Like this was not the Will Smith movie we all grew up on, right? Like we didn't get a vaccine in a matter of weeks by like the kooky scientists. Like so, like in awareness for the long run, where things are going to be different for at least the next 6 months. So I think that some of that information is going to be really good. And so, yeah, let's chat about that. Let's jump right into our agenda. I think, go ahead, what?
I have a quick question about what Wayne just said. Wayne, you were talking about how that includes funding for PPE. Where can somebody apply for that? Like all of us that are using PPE in our businesses all the time. Is there somewhere that we can apply for that for the kids?
Yes. So this is Sedgwick County. And it says their application is open. This was released, and I'm going to send this to D. Nelson right now. But this was released on July 20th, and so they're accepting applications right now. And you go to their website. There's a COVID cares funding, a COVID-19 cares funding link where you can apply. And it says the funds can be used to reimburse necessary spending due to the coronavirus that has occurred since March 1st. And so anyway, it's got all of the details there. So you'll have this information shortly.
Okay.
Thank you. My other
Can I-
question was, is
Go ahead.
the other part of the stimulus that the Congress is working on, is it part of that possible P4 that they mentioned to use the remainder of the PPP?
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, I don't know all of the details that are going to go into that because it's in negotiation right now. But yes, we ourselves, the SBA, still has available funding under for the Paycheck Protection Program, and I believe they're going to maybe make more of those loans available. Perhaps there are going to be some other usages for those funds, but I don't know yet how that's going to shake out.
So
thank you.
I think Amber had one, and Felicia, we're gonna actually probably get to you in the next minute because to talk about alternative sources for PPE. But let's go with Amber, and then I'll give a quick update on testing. We'll get to the PPE stuff. We'll hammer out the agenda real quick, because I know that we've been in open forum for a while. Amber, the floor is yours.
I was just going to say with that grant, or it's not a grant, the thing with the Sedgwick County, it's FEMA money, and for nonprofits to apply, you have to have your DUNS and your SAMS number to be able to get federal funding. And so and it takes longer than 20 minutes to fill out. It says 20 minutes to fill out. It took us 2.5 hours to write. I'm sure it takes 20 minutes to upload it, but it does not take, it takes more like 2-3 hours to write it based on the questions that it's asking you.
Kara, you were shaking your head. Do you have experience with this or anything to add?
I don't have anything to add. I actually had a meeting with Amber yesterday and we were discussing that as well. So
Okay.
just, yep, in
So
agreement.
It's not easy. It's not a checkbox. Okay.
No.
Well,
No.
I'm going to reach out to some of folks who I think pay attention a little more to the feds and what they're doing than I do. Try to do some research on what this package coming out of the Senate looks like, and see if I can start getting some information out there. I'm in a weird spot where I got to figure out what part of the process it is, if it's being amended, because I don't want to put something out there and then find out it was pulled, like last minute. So but I will check it out and try to identify what we might get coming out of that maybe. And then also if we can work with Wayne and some of our other partners to navigate through some of this information. And then obviously, Amber and Kara, where that type of warning where if you're a nonprofit, you can get it, but it's going to take a while and get someone smart, some accountant or lawyer to help you to fill it out. That I think is going to be really good. So just testing diverse communities, we've actually seen testing, just an update on it. Last week, that link that went out that gave all the different testing sites, I think was really helpful. 211, I got a COVID test about a week ago. I got a call back today to get my results, and they left a message. They didn't leave the results, and so now I got to spend another 2 days calling them back. They are just slammed, and that was my 4th test, by the way. I'm actually getting used to it. So going through 211, they are getting slammed right now with tests, and that makes sense because we have community spread. I have heard that Andover testing has been faster. The turnaround's faster. I heard that from a business owner where his employees got sick, and they've actually gone out and figured out which testing sites are having a faster turnaround so that employees can get back to work. So tip of the hat to the free market for figuring that out. And I think it was Andover, I think, was really one of them. And Amber, it looks like you got something to add.
I was just going to say how frustrating it is for the testing. I have several employees that we have had to send and or call that said for testing. And, and I work with the at-risk population, and missing any work is, detrimental to them. And I'm sure that's for everybody. Yeah. Missing one paycheck for them could be an eviction notice. And so the challenge that we have is that they go get tested, and they said, great, we'll call you if you're positive, and,
right.
really soon. Right. But if you're not positive, well, you'll get a letter in the mail in 5 to 7 days. So we're in limbo. They never would have tested positive and they could have come back to work. And so now we have this bad stigmatism that, I got people that said, well, I don't feel that bad. I'm like, no, you still cannot come in the building.
And that's the thing, especially if, all right, so if that data point that was presented to me yesterday at the Harvard class is true, that you will get kind of a lower case of COVID if you have a mask on,
Right.
You are still have COVID and you're still out there, you could still give it to someone who might have a higher reaction, right? So, so the idea of kind of monitor your symptoms, and if your symptoms are fine, you might be fine. That logic, now that we switched over to masks, because we're seeing the medical side of it, just kind of evolve, that might be different now. Now, I'm not saying it is. My doctor is absolutely useless. I'm not a medical person. But the way that we are seeing kind of the continuation or evolution of this, it wouldn't shock me, right? That the old advice was, okay, monitor your symptoms. Well, the woman who cut my hair, she had practically no symptoms. And then, and some of the other folks we're seeing out there that are younger, healthy, having very, very light symptoms, their bodies are probably better to fight this off anyways, but also wearing a mask is also helping them fight this off because they got a lower dose of it, but they are still going to really impact grandma, especially if grandma's not wearing a mask. So it's interesting, but I mean, we'll stay on top of it. And I will tell you that the background chatter right now politically is that they're looking for faster turnaround testing opportunities. The county is in the driver's seat. They're the ones with the CARES Act money. I think they're trying to buy a lab, or they're trying to, weeks ago we talked about this. The conversation was about a lab that can be upgraded, right? This is like buying a computer, where, by the way, my computer crashed and I'm waiting 2 weeks for my freaking motherboard. So this is a tough subject for me, but it's like buying a computer where, like, okay, how many processors do I need? How much muscle do I need? Because I want this thing to last longer than 5 years. Like, that's what the conversation we're having about labs, where, okay, what can we use this next for? But I think they are pulling a trigger. That's going to be a game changer for us. The game changer is going to be faster turnaround time, because just what you're saying, an employee gets sick, get them tested, get the results back in a half an hour. Now does that person have to isolate or not? Where I'm like waiting, it's just impractical to wait a week to 10 days for results.
And then find out you didn't have it and you could have been working this entire time.
Right. Or you're going to work because you feel fine. It turns out you did have it. Bell.
Exactly.
I just want to say here that Wichita State is actually working with Sedgwick County. So there's some real work around establishing a lab in this area. So I just wanted to chime in on that.
Yeah, no, there are partners on this where particularly, they've been mentioned, where our higher ed institutions have been really great, where I think WSU Tech was able to get testing supplies utilizing an academic retailer, people who can actually sell products to the nursing programs. And that's one of the ways we got testing stuff earlier on when the feds wouldn't give it to us. So there is some really interesting networking and partnerships going on.
There's always a workaround, isn't there?
Right. And don't get, being a policy person, like, I look for that. Like, I love, like, I'm not a lawyer, but like, if I was, like, that would, like, I get why lawyers like being lawyers, because you're looking for, like, where's that gray area that I can get what I need out of this. And so anyways, so we're still testing in diverse communities. I actually think we kind of took a step back when it came to testing because demand has gone up so far so much. But let's utilize our own, avenues of input to get input back on maybe some sites are going faster than others or better than others. Let's make sure that we kind of can report back which ones are doing better, so we can kind of guide our employees or friends over to more efficient areas.
There's a line every day in Andover.
Yeah, and I know, and they're not social distancing, I hear. Like, so.
No.
And also,
I drive by it every day.
And there's a level of privilege with a huge level of privilege, by the way, with the idea that some of us can work from home. Like, my dad and mom do not earn a paycheck if they don't go to work. My mom's a bartender. my dad's a carpenter. If he's not building a bathroom, he's not earning a paycheck. He cannot do that through Zoom. So also, like, my wife is going to get a COVID test. She's doing that today. She's going through 211, which is the longer process, because Andover, which is the shorter process, she shouldn't be clogging up a line that someone else who needs to get to work sooner should be in, right? Like, so we should also, I think, be kind of cognitive of if you are someone who can get away with waiting 10 days, 7 days for results, like, I know it sucks, but going through the slower process might be what someone like I should be doing, right? And then allowing the faster process for those folks who need to get back out there.
Well,
we should
and the
probably,
at-risk population can't get to Andover. There's no buses that go that way. So,
that's another thing too. Yeah.
that option isn't available. So they have to get it here in Wichita where there is a bus.
That's true too. Joey.
Well, I just had a question, and maybe it's a question of privilege, but is it the at-risk community that none of them have family practice doctors? Because I had to go to the doctor for something else the other day, and they said if I needed a test, I could get the results in 2 days. And so I'm just wondering, do none of these people have family practice doctors?
Most of them don't have insurance.
Right. And family practice doctors are variant on what they can do. Like, my doctor won't test me. Like he's, we're not doing those tests here. Like, we don't have the lab. So
it just varies a lot on what is available for family practice too.
It means you should tell me your doctor's name at the end of this so I can switch. No, I'm kidding. But also there are, I think Health Corps, for example, in the very beginning of all this, they set up their mobile unit over off 21st Street, and I think it was Oliver 21st, and that was, a lifesaver. That was great. And it's what we gotta, maybe I could reach out to these guys where they did that early on, and then we see the second bump that no one was expecting. We thought this thing would go dormant and be seasonal. Like, that's what we were praying for, right? We're finding out, by the way, it's actually its closest relative is SARS. It's not flu. It's not a cold, although and like I said, I'm not a medical doctor. I just listen to them. One of the leading candidates to be a vaccine is actually utilizing a cold bug, because it's in the same family as a cold. The cold vaccine is actually it's triggering antibodies and T cells that can fight off coronavirus. The coronavirus itself is a SARS, which is scary, right? But anyways, but we thought it was going to go dormant for a while. So I'm wondering if these guys kind of already went through whatever money they were utilizing to get that testing out. And if with this next stimulus package coming, will they be able to do that again, right? Like, will they be able to set up in some of these communities that, might not have access to Andover, might not have access to primary care doctors. So that's something to be, I think, cognitive of. All right, PPE supplies. Ms. Despain, what we got?
Okay, so we have found another product, and we've got some, and we're going to try it, and it's called Clean Smart, and it's supposed to be bactericidal, virucidal, and fungicidal. It's been around for at least 5 years. It's supposed to be FDA cleared for all of that. It basically breaks down to like a saline solution. So we've gotten some of that. We're going to give it a try and see if it works, because I don't know if everybody else is still having this problem, but we are still having a difficulty finding Lysol. Really? Sometimes we can, sometimes we can find Microban. And sometimes when it's on the shelf, you can only get one. And we try to have one at every single station, including all of our shampoo stations. So I don't know if anybody knows some secret about where to find Lysol. If you do, please let me know.
But Clean Spot might be an alternative.
Yes, correct. And like I said, it basically breaks down to a saline solution. And they've been using that in Asia forever. There's a form of it that they used in different medical treatments and in their hospitals. So we're going to give this a try. I'll let you guys know. We're going to get a few more and see kind of what we think about it. And I'm trying to do a little bit more research on it.
Good. Wow. Okay. And we're actually, just one other thing about some of these Asian countries, we're actually learning a lot, particularly with this type of virus, from our friends over in across the continent where, because they faced this stuff before. They've had, they've had SARS, they've had H1N1. So, Clean Spot being something that maybe.
No, it's Clean Smart, and it's not
Smart.
actually made in Asia. I was just adding that as in my research what I found, and I've known that they've used something similar like this in Asia forever. I started doing some research on this about 10 years ago, but
Okay.
the Clean Smart it's made here in America, so it's
Okay.
FDA approved. And I know they're in the middle of a major growth with their company. So
what's the stock number? I mean, what's the ticker?
yeah, I'm kidding, right?
Yeah.
That's literally what I said to one of them.
That's cool. All right, so good research. Let's hope that comes out. And I think one of the issues, particularly with that was brought up at a previous meeting, was utilizing this while still having to be effective, while still not like destroying the seat or the chair or the stuff you guys work with. So hopefully,
right,
this
and
finds that
that's a big
balance.
deal. Yeah, because
Right.
everybody was saying, "Oh, just use bleach." Well, you know what? That's going to bleach your stuff. Number one. I mean, not that I'm saying bleach doesn't work with certain things, but chairs and different things like that, you can only use so many things if you don't want all of your equipment to just deteriorate quickly.
Right. I'm trying to figure out that balance. All right. Well, let's hope we get another report on that. So I think we talked about really the third, which is guidance for employees on testing. We've kind of hit a lot of this during our open discussion on testing, on paying for testing, quarantine timeline, and for contact tracing, for what we're hearing, or right now the standard, and I think I said this last time, contact tracing is usually you have to be within 6 feet of someone for 10 minutes or more. And then that person needs to have contact. That's a contact tracer. We are getting away from cluster spread, where we're trying to identify where it came from, because now we're just full on community spread, sadly, very sadly, right? So contact tracing is going to be more difficult now. And one of the things I think we have to do, and I got beat up on Twitter by the next generation, where they were pretty much somewhat outing businesses that they felt weren't handling this right. And one of my replies, one of them was let's make sure we don't encourage people to not come forward and say that they had coronavirus, right? Because some of those tweets were, well, this restaurant had someone test positive for coronavirus, and they felt they didn't shut down long enough or didn't do something. And we don't want employees now to not say they have coronavirus because they don't want the backlash on their job, or they don't want a negative stigma. We have to keep in mind that we actually want people to admit if they tested positive, hey, yeah, I tested positive, take away the stigma, because we want other folks that have been around them who might start experiencing symptoms to now also go get tested. Because if you discover this early on, before you're in a hospital, you have a better chance of not being as hit hard by it, right? So they'll start you on with different medicine. So that is something I think that we got to be thinking about moving forward, is ensuring not only that we do good practices with this, but and I wish that we'd come out with somewhat of a blanket policy where what is the best practice if your employee tests positive. What is that best practice? And maybe we do some research. I'm sure CDC or someone has come out with something, and try to maybe promote that. So everyone's kind of on the same page, where it's not just, well, my boss said it was okay. It's not just somebody doing Facebook research, but have something you can look towards and say, did you knock off all these checkpoints before you reopened? So I think that's going to be important going forward. But Amber, are you chiming in? I saw motion. Okay. That's the that's the teacher in me, right? Anyone at all flinches, I call and I'm oh, answer the question. No,
I won't move. I'm sorry.
So but I think that we want to still promote that it's okay to acknowledge that you have this, or a business to promote, hey, we had someone with this, that's why we're closed down for the next 2 days, we're going to sterilize everything, because I think that hiding it's going to cause more problems. But just throwing it out there. All right, last thing, and we're kind of on time. We normally run about 15 minutes late, but we're kind of on time if this doesn't take too much. Is reappointments. So we're ending our first term. If anyone wants to be reappointed, everyone on this call will 100% be reappointed if you just shoot Dee an email and say, I would like to be reappointed. And the next phase of this, I'm thinking we're going to get more into small business, particularly service sector, with coronavirus, because we're hitting another wave. Like I think towards the end a couple of weeks ago when we thought we were towards the end of the coronavirus, I think our focus was, all right, let's start preparing people in case we get a bounce back in the fall. Like how do you prepare yourself for that? It looks like we're already getting hit. And so some of this moving forward, I think is going to be, how are we preparing for possibly another economic hit? I think everyone on this call, particularly, should be reappointed. And I might add some, because not everyone who were appointed the first time stuck around the whole time, right? Like, which is fine. People get busy. But I'm probably going to add some people in, the restaurant and bar sectors to this as well. I just really think our mix right now, small business owners, nonprofit folks, Wayne Bell, who knows everything, Ian, who's in the education world, like it's still like this group still matches what our current focus is going to be for another 3 months, I think. So if you want to be appointed, shoot Dee an email. We'll do another 3 months. If you can, if you're like, hey, I can only commit to 3 months. I'm really busy. I got a lot of things going on. And that was kind of the goal of the 3 months, where I will definitely reappoint people continuously. But I want to attract people who can serve, who normally are really busy, who can also, will serve just 3 months, say, I got to take time off. I got to get back to my work. I want to make it flexible enough so those people can still have a chance to serve. So, we will have, I think, on, it looks like August 7th or 21st will be when it terms up. So we got a while, but I want to, I'm going to bring in some bar folks, I think. We're going to bring in some other folks as well. But this group right here still matches exactly what we're aiming for. So if you can do another 3 months, please do another 3 months. Any questions? Let's get into open discussion. I think we did open discussion early on, but anything else we want to add? Ian, what you got?
Yeah, I'm actually going to shoot you an email because I've been in contact with people within the bar and the entertainment industry.
Okay.
Because we are being hit hard by this, and
yeah, you're a DJ. Yeah,
DJ as well as with the live music, and my band has had to drop shows. We've had a lot of others who had to drop. We've had owners of prominent places who aren't able or worried they're not going to be able to stay open and reopen. And these are places that are bringing in shows that otherwise wouldn't be coming to town. And even going, that's not just the smaller clubs, but I'm talking about also with a place like the Cotillion, which is bringing in those mid-level shows that usually would skip over Wichita because we're kind of in between here in Oklahoma City or here in Dallas. So I've been in contact with them, and I'm just wanting to pass along some stuff they've said.
Okay.
So, and even if there's a possibility of just like setting up a meeting with you, that would be ideal. That way I can just really present this stuff and see what can be done,
Yeah, let's do that. Shoot me an email, and we can get a group of folks on the Zoom. Let's get some feedback.
Sounds like a plan.
My goal, like I said, is to find safe ways to still keep people moving along, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think some of that's going to be outdoor stuff. I think some of that's going to be kind of expanding out. If it's not too late. I mean, that's the other thing too, is that's the thing with this virus. It's on a timeline, and it sets a timeline. It's one of those where, like, when it comes to ratcheting down some of, the I guess, club stuff, should we have done that 2 weeks ago? Like, is it too late to do that now? So but moving forward, like I said, the best case scenario is we find ways where we don't have to do more of a shutdown. We can find creative ways to keep things going. And I think hearing from that community is going to be very important, and then kind of bouncing ideas as well. Because because we know the variables, like outside, you're less likely to catch it. Social distancing's good. Masks are needed. We know roughly what the formula looks like to be safe. So if I talk with folks like you, and I think the people reaching out to you, how do we apply that formula to, a different model that will allow, I guess, live music, entertainment, that will allow this sector to safely keep moving along until we get those numbers down. So that's going to be a very important discussion. So yeah, reach out to me. Let's do that.
What about gyms? I know we don't have anybody on here from mini gyms.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about, again, shutting down gyms, what does that look like for them?
So go ahead, Kara.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say I had recommended Jacob Wayman with Orange Theory Fitness when all of this.
Early on, yeah.
So I haven't asked him recently if he was still interested, but at the time he was interested in being in the next group. So I think he would be a really good asset for us to talk to about that.
So he comes to mind too. He reached out to me last week, and he's someone who I spoke with before, even before becoming mayor, right? Like he gave me the time of day back when we weren't going to win and we were just this weird upstart. Yeah, him and his wife actually own a couple private gyms, and he reached out and was like, hey, I saw your tweet. My tweet was about the White House recommendations. And this is also, I think, scares people, where what the White House and what CDC and what other people are recommending, like we take that into account, but also can we do it better? Can we do it differently, right? Do we need a full-on shutdown, or can we take advantage of all of our parking, all of the stuff we have already that other cities don't, and kind of spread out? Well, he was very much like, hey, we are double time cleaning. We are doing, like, they're taking it very serious. And then a lot of the feedback I'm getting from the YMCAs, like folks who go to the YMCAs, they're taking it very serious, right? Like, so it's very similar to some of these other areas where in some areas, some cities, these might be sources of outbreak. In ours, like, I don't think we've seen that. Like, just like with early on where people thought that salons were going to be a source of outbreak, we haven't really seen that here. Like, our salons haven't been. So we're better to utilize our local experience and data than just to kind of use more blanket stuff, I think. So yeah, with the gyms and such, and I got to go back over my snitch line data. I love calling it that, by the way, where everyone's like, oh, it's a snitch line, it's bad. I'm like, what kind of? But to see, are we getting complaints from gyms? Most of the complaints that we've gotten have sadly been a lot of them from bars, a lot of them from the type of businesses that the people, the managers just don't understand that the severity of COVID, where this isn't a big deal type stuff. Like, it's just misinformation. Those are, I don't think gyms have been brought up much. In talking to Jacob and Kara, I think you're right. I'm going to reach out to him, see if we can get him appointed to the next one. Talking to Jacob, I think that he has reaffirmed. Did I say that word right? He has also made me more confident that they are taking it seriously and doing what they need to do. So, but yeah, Amber, good question. And like I said, we're trying not to do the blanket stuff if we can avoid it. But the only way to avoid it is to put parameters around it, to have discipline where you really can only do 45 people. You really can only do 15 people. You now have to put a divider up. So you have two different rooms instead of one big room. So you have 15 people in each room. Like, we need that type of stuff going on if we're going to stay moving forward. So yeah, let me reach out to Jacob, though. That's a good one. So anything else? Oh, minutes. I got a text message. Has every member had a chance to read over the minutes?
Yes.
Is there any proposed changes to the minutes? If there are no proposed changes to the minutes, I will make a motion to accept the minutes as written. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Amber would be recognized as the second. If there's no discussion on said motion, all in favor, please respond with aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. The ayes have it, the minutes are passed. All right, guys, I will see you all on August 7th. Reach out before then, and reach out to me before then if we'll set up the other thing. Wayne, if you hear anything about more stuff coming down, reach out to all of us. Let's get the info going. And with that, I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. Take it easy, guys.